This is Olga Moroz, and the topic of my research is eugenics and slavery in America. Colson Whitehead, in his novel Underground Railroad, described the journey of runaway slave Cora, and through the images of her life and life of her family, and desperate path toward freedom and safety, the author showed the reflection of eugenics movement during the colonial times that played an undeniable part in racism and discrimination as we know it. So what is eugenics? Eugenics is the science of improving a human population by controlled breeding to increase the chances of development of desirable heritable characteristics. The father of eugenics is Francis Galton. He was an English scientist in late 1800s. So his theory was based on Darwin's natural selection theory, and his research was based on statistical studies of British families and the ancestral traits and social Darwinism, as well as Gregory Mendel's research on patterns of inheritance. By the beginning of 20th century, eugenics traveled to the United States, and it was actively supported by social governmental programs. So positive social governmental programs would be called a positive eugenics, and it was designed to encourage the reproduction of the good traits. So the stipends for parents of large healthy family was issued. Also, fitter family contest being created. Eugenics in the United States cause improvement of kids' medical treatment, education, and welfare. On the other hand, very popular became the negative measures of the negative eugenics that were forced sterilization, immigration restrictions, and also the marriage restrictions. So one of the most famous followers of eugenics in the United States was Charles Davenport, Harry Laughlin, and Margaret Sanger. One of the famous negative eugenics measures was forced sterilization. So during the eugenics active period, over 65,000 people were sterilized under official eugenics program in the United States. The definition of eugenics was not known during the times of slavery in America, but correlation was clear. In his novel, Colson Whitehead outlined the scenes of slave state through the images of life. His main heroine, slave Cora, her mother Mabel, and grandmother Ajari. So the reproductive rights of slaves were in the hands of their owners, who viewed the slave breeding as a very profitable business. So the most valuable traits, hereditary traits, was strength and endurance for men, and women were treated, judged in the same way by their skills. If they can cook or be a personal servant or have a good breeding potential. Well, many slaveholders mated their strongest male slaves with as many females as possible in order to produce a steady flow of new slaves with the positive and valuable hereditary traits. As an example of in the novel, the Cora's grandmother Ajari, she had 3 husbands and gave birth to 5 children, from which only one survived. But her hereditary traits was valuable for slave owners because she had broad shoulders and big hands. Colson Whitehead shows his main heroine Cora as a target for eugenics because she became an outcast among her own kind. She was placed to live in Hub, which was the house for unwanted. It was a place for mentally or physically ill, unstable, or damaged by the life the slaves led. And from the eugenics point of view, she would be a candidate for eugenics treatment for getting rid of unwanted traits. Another great example of Novel's correlation to eugenics would be that Colson Whitehead introduced his main heroine Cora as a target for the sterilization surgery. So the doctor offered her an option to undertake the sterilization procedure as a chance to take control over her destiny. But in the eyes of Cora, sterilization would be a baby stealing, a stealing of the future of the people, a stealing of hope that one day the next generation would live better than they. And Cora was brave and rebellious. It was in her genes. She inherited the endurance and brutality from her grandmother Jari and her stubborn instincts for resistance from her runaway mother Mabel, and those traits would be considered very undesirable by slaveholders, and therefore Cora was a candidate for sterilization. Through the history, eugenics inspired many controversial medical studies like unethical human subject medical experiments on African Americans. Well, after all, eugenics in world history will always personalize the horrors of unfair and inhumane treatment. And Colson Whitehead, I think in his novel, he wasn't talking only about the eugenics during slavery, but most about American history itself from the beginning to the present days. And our history was shaped by the racist attitude of greediness, covered by noble ideas of prosperity and equality for everyone. So eugenics idea have their roots in slavery and racism and grew into dark historical event as we know it now. Though the correlation of eugenics and slavery, through the correlation of eugenics and slavery, the author stated that our society will accept as standard the most immoral, inhumane, and xenophobic acts as soon as they are convenient and profitable, even if they are pseudoscientifically and unethically backed up.